Welcome to the Grow My Salon Business podcast, where we focus on the business side of hairdressing. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and I'll be talking to thought leaders in the hairdressing industry, discussing insightful, provocative, and inspiring ideas that matter. So get ready to learn, get ready to be challenged, get ready to be inspired, and most importantly, get ready to grow your salon business. And welcome to today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on your favorite podcasting app, either way, it's great to have you here with us today. Now, today is part 2 of an episode I did with Jen LeBlanc. And if you didn't catch the first episode, it was episode 186. So it's probably about, by the time this one comes out, it's probably about 3 or 4 episodes previous to this one. And it was such a good conversation we were having that I wanted to cut it when we got to the sort of 50 or 60 minute mark and do part 2 because, you know, we had a big topic that we hadn't even touched on. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, Jen is the operations manager and director of marketing at Salon Rootz and Endz. And if I've got that wrong, she will tell us in a minute. And if I'm saying Medina wrong, she'll tell me about that as well, because Salon Rootz and Endz is in Medina.
No. Oddly enough, you say Medina right. The locals here in the States say Medina wrong. They always want to call it Medina, Ohio. You had it right.
Oh, good, because I wasn't sure. I remember I asked you last time, and so I was about to say, is it Medina? Is it Medina? I took a gamble, and I went Diner, as in American diner. I'm going to call it Medina. Yeah. So nailed it. So Medina, Ohio. Now, in today's podcast, we're going to talk about primarily the big, nugget that we didn't get to last time, which was talking about combining both business models. So the employee business model and the suite business model, because that's what Jen has done and very successfully. And we're also going to talk about having your own e-commerce platform and generally all things that come under the banner of marketing. So with my little intro done, Jen, great to have you back. I'm really looking forward to, getting into it today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here again. We had so much fun several weeks ago that we actually couldn't stop talking.
Exactly. And I had a great response about it as well. A lot of people reached out to me on Instagram or sent me emails and stuff. And I always think it's fabulous when someone like yourself is so willing to share. Unfortunately, a lot of people still want to keep things secret, and I think it's healthy for the industry if we all share. And you're a great sharer, and I really appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
That the listeners do as well. So I'm not sure if I'm even getting the bit right about Rootz to Endz, because just explain to the audience what Rootz to Endz is and how that name came about, because that in itself describes what we're going to really be talking about here, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely. So Salon Rootz is our commission-based location. We just celebrated 17 years this past September. Endz Salon Studios is our studio rental business model in the same plaza. And our business model overall for a growth plan for the business is we grow artists from Rootz to Endz. So Rootz is the, I don't want to call it a training salon because it's more than that, but that is the entry level commission-based location. And then Endz is what I would call endgame for those that don't want to immerse themselves into being a part of our education team, don't want to be a part of the leadership team at Rootz. There are other avenues for those that want to be independent.
Got it. Okay. And are the studios called Endz, or is that because they are called Endz?
Endz Salon Studios, correct. Yes.
Right. Okay. E-N-D-Z, yeah?
E-N-D-Z, yes. So Rootz to Endz.
Rootz to Endz, exactly.
And
I like that. I like that. Now, there's a lot of people that I won't say there's a love-hate relationship. There probably used to be 10 years ago. That was very, they were the enemy. But I think now that the industry I lived that. Right.
They were not very well received. And the thing with us, though, is that when we created Endz, we didn't create Endz to harm anybody that was in our general area.
Yeah.
we created Endz to be an insurance policy for ourselves.
Okay.
Because we had a group of artists that came to us and they wanted to chair rent. And we said, Rootz will never be that model.
Yeah.
But studio rental, booth rental, whatever you want to call it, was booming in our market area. So instead of fighting it and being, obstinate to new ideas, we decided to make it part of our growth pattern. And now, 10 years ago, when we first started doing this, we first started talking about it, it was, oh my God, you're going to do that? Are you sure that that's going to work? Everyone will just go booth rent. And it truly doesn't work like that.
No.
First of all, studio rental is not for everybody. Okay. For some, it's a stepping stone for when they want to own their own location. Okay. For some, it's end game, meaning they've been doing hair 20 years and they don't want to work with the younger generation anymore. And they just want to come in, work their hours, do good hair, go home, run their own business. There's room for all of us, and it's how we embrace that I think is the difference. And what makes us different is we embrace it as part of our growth pattern.
Right. Okay. So I think I'm right in saying I've heard you talk about this before, and there was actually a story about how it came about in that you had some people working for you in the salon as employees, and they left. And they left to pursue a suite type business.
And they were our golden children.
Exactly.
Like they were the never gonna leave, they'll be with us forever, type scenario. And because we were operating out of an emotional space of how could we prevent this from ever happening again? There were salons locally to us that were very, very upset. Very, very, and actually reached out to us and told us that. But it wasn't, once they understood why we did it, there was less of that animosity because they eventually lost people to our studios.
Right.
But
it
wasn't intended to be that way. Yeah. And it still isn't today. Yeah. Do we get artists from all over? Yes, we do. Yeah. But the primary focus is Rootz to Endz.
Right. So they're your people that start off in Salon Rootz, which is an employee-based commission salon, and they have the opportunity at some point, we'll talk about that in a minute, to go to Studio Endz if they want to, and then they are their independent business unit of one if they see that is how they want to work for, as you just said, all sort of manner of reasons there. Okay, and just to sort of reconfirm, because I know you said it pretty quickly in case people didn't hear it, you're literally next door neighbors. Like
we are in the same plaza. Yeah. We are separated by 3 businesses, 2 restaurants and a hospice center. So we're literally, I'm in the studio, my office is in the studio suite location. Yeah. And I go back and forth all day long. Right.
Okay. And is it sort of common knowledge that it's the same business, that it's the same owners?
Yes.
It is.
Well, you know what? In our industry, it is. Okay. Yeah. But to the general consumer, I think it's become more common knowledge, but it's, Endz will get a phone call all the time and they don't really realize that they're calling a studio rental salon and or they don't realize that we're owned by the same commonalities.
Yeah. So does Endz share the studios, do they share a common receptionist?
No, actually, we have a corporate leasing line. Okay. Which is myself, which every now and again will receive consumer-based phone calls.
Right. So they will call you thinking that...
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct. Thinking that they're going to make a reservation, but everyone's independent. So then they get direct to our website where everyone's own booking information is there, so on and so forth.
Right. Okay. So as you've already said, it's not for everybody. And I totally get that. But I can see, the examples that you just said that, maybe someone's been doing it for 20, 30 years or whatever. They've got their own client base and they actually don't want to work with young 18, 20-year-olds, whatever. They just want to do their own thing and lock the door and leave, and they're responsible for their clients and creating their own environment. I totally get that. I totally get that. Is it seen as an inevitability? Like, is it seen as a promotion in any way?
We treat it as a promotion at Rootz.
Right.
Okay, so we make a really big deal about it. Yeah. When somebody approaches us, there's a studio available at Endz, and they want to make that transition. We make it a big deal to our guests. We make it a big deal to our team because it is.
Yeah.
It is the next step. It doesn't necessarily have to be everybody's next step. I'll give you an example. I had a meeting yesterday with one of my Rootz members who's going to make the transition in 3 months. So we always plan in 90-day increments. Gives time for her to tell her clients. It gives time for her to organize how she wants to set up her business. We always advise them to be an employee of themselves so that they W-2 themselves. It gives her time to create LLC paperwork. It gives them time. Yep. Okay. She has been with us for 5 years-ish. She started in high school. She is 20 years old. I have employees that are in their early 40s, late 30s that are level 5, level 4 artists for us and have absolutely zero want to come over here.
They want to stay employees with all the
They want to
security.
Stay employees. They want to come in, do hair, go home. They don't have to manage their book. They don't have to order their own color. The list of I don't have to's is really long.
Yeah.
Okay. When I talked to my team member yesterday, I said, what's the push? I always want to know perspective. And she said, I want the freedom. Now, granted, she has a lot of freedom. Our teams make their own schedules. Okay. I mean, we set hour blocks. Like we know how many hours we require them for the week, but they essentially choose their own. And she said, coming over here feels different. The freedom feels different. And I find that really interesting.
So let me just go back to what you just said there. Your employees choose their own blocks. You say to them, we need you for 30 hours a week or whatever the number is, but they can choose when they're going to book themselves in for those 30 hours.
They choose a 12 or they choose a 6.
And are they choosing this is what it is for the next year or 6 months or week or month, or how do you do that? I mean,
basically on the year, you know what I mean? So, but if somebody came to me and said, hey, my kid plays soccer in the summer, I need to swap some of my hours morning, some of my nights for mornings or something like that. Okay. Yeah. Now we are growing quite rapidly. Mm-hmm. So we are converting into more of a true chair share. So if somebody works 8 to 2, somebody's in that chair 2 to 8. I have eliminated those middle hours of I can come in at 9 and I could work till 4. We used to be able to accept that, but now that I have more people, I can't be on top of each other. So we need to make sure that's why we did it. Either you work 8 to 8 or you work 8 to 2. We really don't want you working 12s unless you are over level 3. If you're over level 3, we will let you work a 12-hour shift. Right. Anything less than that, you work in 6-hour increments. And that's just so that we try to eliminate the sitting around time.
Yeah. Okay. What qualifies people to go to Endz? Like if they're working for you, so internally, not an external person come knocking on the door, but if they're working for you and they've been there a couple of years, what are the criteria that they have to hit before you say, okay, this is now available for you if you want it?
Yeah, so that's fun because I literally just did this yesterday with one of my team members. And when we're done here, I have another team member that I'm actually talking to. That's why I had a hard stop. We look at gross sales production. I look at their retail sales, but that's not as big of a player coming over here because retail, all girls here don't have it, or they might have a very small amount. So that's less of a player into it. Gross sales is the big one. Secondly, we look at how many of their guests are truly their guests. And that's an exclamation point behind that because it's one thing to be busy with the book of all Salon Rootz derived guests, meaning non-requests. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's another thing to have a book filled with all of your people and maybe a handful of non-requests over the course of the month. Yeah. Where that makes a difference is when we say XYZ is moving over, there's a good portion of those guests that are going to stay at Rootz and they'll just go to somebody else within Rootz. Okay. But if they're yours, they're going to go with you and we want them to. We give them their book. We give them all their appointments. We make that transition as smooth as we possibly can. We own both. They're both our salons. So the other the other big piece of that is when I talk to them, I want to know, I'm gauging their discipline level. Okay. Because the thought that you're going to come over here and you're going to make your own hours and you're going to work flex doesn't work like, hey, I'm going to text my girlfriends that I'm working today. Okay. We want to set you up for long-term success because I don't want to have to replace you in your room. Yeah. Okay. So I am gauging how disciplined you are in terms of your ability to convert to being an entrepreneur. Even though we preach all of our artists behind the chairs should be entrepreneurs, they're not. You have to start thinking like one. So my team member I met with yesterday, that was her homework assignment I gave her. I said, in the next 30 days, every time you come to Rootz, you need to start thinking like an entrepreneur. What does my day look like today if I was at Endz? What does my day look like today if it canceled? If my day fell apart, people are sick, people cancel, kid has a last minute baseball game. How am I going to react if that happens to me and I have to handle it? How am I going to react? How am I going to manage my book? You have to start thinking independently so that when you move on independently, it's not such a challenge for you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm scribbling down some questions for you.
Yeah.
So the first one was, you said that the clients don't all want to go. So, I'm a stylist, I'm working in Rootz and I've decided I'm going to go to Endz, the studio, and you're telling all the clients that I'm going, but some of them say, actually, I'd rather stay here. Why do the clients? Why would the clients rather stay? What do they see?
Well, the environments are very different.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The environments couldn't be any more polar opposite of one another. Yeah. I'll paint a picture for you. Rootz is a loud, robust, fun community. It's an open floor plan. Yeah. Where we're loud, we laugh. It's like Cheers. Everyone knows everyone's name. Okay. Yeah. It's a very open environment. Yeah. Endz is very quiet. Most of the girls work with their door closed. The music on the radio is a much more even keel, mellow environment. Everyone kind of keeps to themselves. They collectively communicate and enjoy each other's relationships, but it's very different. The majority of the girls here work with the door closed. Okay. It's very quiet. It's a very different atmosphere. Now, on the flip side, some guests really, really like that. Well, they'll be like, Rootz was so loud today. And you're like, I know, we love it. Like, we love the chaos and the mayhem. But some really prefer just them and their artists. Yeah. Not a bunch of assistants running around, so it's a very different guest experience, actually, as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate that. I mean, I would be the person who wants to be in the salon. I want to be in the noisy, bustling thing with the whole vibe going on around me. That's what I would want. I get that. Do any of them want to come back? Do any of them go from Rootz to Endz and then for exactly that reason that they underestimated? You've never had it happen?
Yeah, we've never had it happen. And they always ask. Okay, matter of fact, my team member met with yesterday. That was her first question. Can I go back? I said, absolutely. She was like, oh, for real? I said, 100%. You absolutely could go back. It's the most asked question. We've never had it happen.
Okay, interesting. All right. So, and
I find that interesting too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that is because of you, in that you make sure that they really know what they're getting into before they go. So they've sort of worked through a lot of that. Would you say
Correct.
So? Yeah. Let me ask you this question as well. I know that you're the marketeer and you're really into the whole marketing side of it. So Rootz has got you as the sort of backbone. Now, the whole idea of going to Endz is now I'm self-employed. I'm a business unit of one. Happens to be owned by the same people, but now I'm my own business. So what I'm asking is, what support do they get from Rootz? Like, do you offer them support, like in any shape or form? Yeah,
we do. So they're invited to all education. Okay, so all continuing ed that occurs at Rootz, they're invited to.
Do they pay for it? So
it depends.
Yeah.
Okay, like for example, we have a WEFT educator coming in a couple months. Rootz girls are paying for it. Everyone here would have to pay for it
Yeah.
individually as well. If it is education based upon points, okay, like we redeem L'Oreal points and we have a cutter coming in or we have a colorist coming in, that they would just be able to come. Like that's
Yeah.
comped.
Yeah.
Okay. There is the amount of support they get actually at Endz is what differentiates us Endz from a lot of the other studio rental businesses that are in our market area.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm in Endz, they have access to full-time business support anytime they want. Okay.
Yeah.
How do I fill out my vendor's license? How do I fill out my tax information? How do I set up my LLC? What software should I choose to set up my business? We do all of that for them, which is a big competitive difference than us and a lot of the other studio suite businesses that are essentially like, here's your apartment building, there's your room. However you do it is however you do it.
Yeah.
People have a lot of questions.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of fear
Yeah.
that goes into because they've never been in a position to do that.
Yeah. Now, I get that. What I want to ask you about that is that, you know, people want to be self-employed. Okay, so put your big boy pants on. You're going to be self-employed now, and you know you got to stand up for by yourself now because you are now in business on your own. Great. So part of being a business on your own is that you have overhead. So what I'm asking is, do they? I think I know the answer is no, but do they have to pay you for that? Do they have like a concierge fee or a marketing fee that they pay you because
If I do anything like graphic design oriented where there's print material involved, there's a fee for the print material.
Right.
But that is it.
Yeah.
You know, everything else is part of them being in our community. It is a massive perk that it works out. The other thing is from a landlord maintenance perspective.
Yeah.
We have, you know, a light bulb goes out. My chair's broken. An outlet doesn't work. I am in-house for all intents and purposes and can make sure that the handyman is contacted today. Or maybe I am the handyman today. You know what I mean? And is going to make sure that we have whatever we need to fix that situation. That is a lot different than a lot of businesses that are set up like this because it's like, well, we'll call, they'll be out this week, where because I'm here, we're going to try to solve the problem now.
Yeah, because let me just turn it the other way around. In where Rootz is, there is obviously a landlord. Assuming you don't own the building, there's a landlord.
Don't own the building. Yeah.
You're in business, or the two girls are that own the business. If there's a problem with a chair or the plumbing or whatever, you don't call the landlord. You're in business, like you deal with that yourself. So can you see what I'm saying here? They want to go in business by themselves. Well, now you're in business by yourself. Like, you know, put your big boy pants on and sort it out.
Yeah.
So that they get a lot of support, which is great. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just I was always amazed during COVID how there were a lot of hairdressers that were in suites who didn't have to pay rent. There were a lot of chair renters who didn't have to pay rent, and they couldn't understand. But like, you're in business now, you're on your own. You want it to be a business on your own. You still have to pay rent. You had to pay rent to your landlord. I had to pay rent to my landlord.
That brings up a great example. You know, let me go backwards. Any time for as long as we've been in business, we have advised all of our independents to be employees of themselves in the event of catastrophe. Okay, this was even pre-COVID.
Yeah.
When COVID hit, only one girl in Endz took my advice to be an employee of themselves. And she got unemployment right away. She had no delays. Okay. All of the independents had long delays, had a lot of red tape that they were working through in Ohio before they got unemployment during the shutdown.
Right.
We, as a business, decided that we weren't going to charge them rent. We did not. For the 2 months we were home, we had to pay rent. Okay. Our landlord was like,
exactly. You had to pay the rent.
I mean,
yeah.
You got to pay the rent. But we did stop theirs. And we stopped theirs because we had wished that our landlord would have stopped ours. Yeah. Okay. And they didn't. And we knew the position and the predicament that they were in. Yeah. And we wanted to do good by them.
Yeah. And that's good. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's fantastic. Yeah. And I know other people whose landlords have done that as well.
I get asked that though. You know, my team member yesterday was like, what happens when I take a vacation? I said, you pay rent.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens when I'm sick? I said, you pay rent. Yep. You know, I mean, that's the other side of that.
Exactly.
You know, is
and a lot of them have a problem with that. You know, I go on holiday. What do you mean you're going to pay for that? I'm on holiday. It's like, but you're a business. You're renting this space. You know.
What happens if I have a baby?
Yeah.
You better plan for it.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
You're going to take maternity leave. You plan for it. You know what I mean? Like those are questions that we get, and you're like, I am providing you a box to do your thing. Yeah. Yes, you're going to get a tremendous amount of support, but you're not my employee. Yeah. And sometimes it's funny when they come over here, because they want to be independent, they want to be on their own. Yeah. Sometimes I find them wanting to act like they work for me. You know, like asking, you know, and that's suits. Fine. Yeah, but you're like, well, I don't know why you care what I have to say. You don't work for me. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like it's a mind shift that has to occur.
Yeah. And I think it's great. Like what you said, you know, at the beginning, you said the way we have set ours up in terms of how we market it, there's a lot of benefits for them. And that is how you're marketing that as a business opportunity for potential people to come in, that you offer a certain amount of support. And that's fabulous. And I totally get how the studio thing, salon suite thing is really good for lots of people. Totally get that. I'm going to put the other hat on for a minute and talk about how some salon owners are sort of up in arms about it and, oh my God, everyone's leaving to go rental, etc. And so the conversation I had with them and other people do, I'm sure you do as well, is, well, you have to look at your business and go, well, how can we market our business, our employee-based business, to make people want to stay and want to be an employee? So that's the question I'm asking you. How do you market to your team in Rootz that they should want to stay at Rootz and make it, you know, these are all the benefits of being an employee? What are some of the things that you have in place?
That's a great question, because there's several different dynamics to that. Okay. On one end, yes, of course, I want Rootz to be the coziest, cushiest, all-inclusive. How could you ever in a million years not want to work at Salon Rootz? Yeah. Okay. On the other end of things, and I'll use current day as an example, I have a couple open studios at Endz for the first time. Okay. We had somebody retire. We had somebody have a baby. We haven't filled those spots yet. Okay. So part of me wants that cycle of people. I want them to move in. Yeah. Okay. I want them to fill the void. However, for every one body that moves from Rootz to Endz, I need 2 at Rootz to replace them. Okay. Financially. Yeah. Okay. Even though it's one big pie. Mm-hmm. Okay. But we don't look at it like that. Once they move here, they're just paying rent. Okay. But when a level 4 or 5 artist moves on, okay, there is 2 to 3 people that it's going to take from my levels 1s, 2s, level 0 to replace that revenue. Okay. Now we are in a really good position right now. We just hired 2 more people. I'm going to be at 20 people as of next week. We are really working our way up to higher employment numbers. That's a great position to be in when I have girls making the transition around. Yeah. Follow me?
Okay. Yeah.
You know, but it's being distinct. We use Endz to market for Rootz. Yeah. From an employee level. because there are a lot of people that know they can't do it right now,
Yeah.
but they want to do it eventually.
Yeah.
So if they get in the Rootz pipeline, they know that in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 8 years,
Yeah.
this is an opportunity under the same umbrella
Yeah.
that they could carry out their career and still stay under the same umbrella.
Yeah. Very easy segue. Yeah.
Yep.
There was something I was going to ask you and I forgot. Now I've just remembered it. You were talking about during COVID, and you had how one girl that made herself, I forget the terminology you used. You said like an employee of herself or something. You said there was only one girl.
I did. Yes.
What did you mean by that? Are you talking about the way she'd set up her company legally, that she was an employee of that company? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so therefore she qualified.
What we advise is for you to be a W-2 employee of yourself. So set up an LLC and then be an employee of your own business. Okay. That way, then, if something happens, a pandemic, world catastrophe, how Ohio unemployment and benefits and that works, you would get that because you're an employee.
Yeah.
If you're set up as an independent, how that works is very different than how it works if you're an employee. The other reason that we tell them that too is let it automatically set up, get a payroll, a paychecks account, and let it tax you. Okay? Because inherently, I'll give you an example. You look at your week and you're like, I did $4,000 this week. And you're like, no, take your rent off, take $300 off for rent or $225 for rent. Okay, now I'm down to $3,700. What did color cost you for the week? Okay, now I'm down to $3,500. Okay, I bought coffee, I bought wine, I bought pop for my guests. Okay, now I'm at $3,400. Now tax it.
Yep.
Okay, you didn't take home $3,100. You might have, but at the end of the 12 months, that's a really common thing here. Hairstylists are inherently like, oh my God, I have to pay my taxes. Or you can set yourself up to where you already paid your taxes.
Yeah. Now that's when you mentioned W-2 for our non-American audience, W-2.
Yeah, sorry.
A W-2 is a tax form basically that is for employees. So that's all a W-2 means, is that you're an employee. So what Jen is saying is that she'd set up her own company, limited liability company, whatever, and made herself an employee of that. So
right.
And the situation that you described, that was the same everywhere, just slightly different.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say everywhere, but that's the same in the UK, Europe, Australia as well.
You never really want to see those things play out that way.
Yeah.
But you're like those that, it seems like a daunting task to have to do that versus showing up today. I have my Square transaction to take the credit card payments or Venmo or whatever. It just seems easy. I show up, I do hair, you pay me. Well, in the big picture, we're running a business now.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't operate. You can't operate that way anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think you already answered it. You just sort of dropped it in there. Weekly rent. What would you be paying in your studios as an average figure?
Sure. So our singles are $225.
Yeah.
Our oversized singles are $300, and our doubles are $430.
Right. Okay. So
doubles, two people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I talk to a lot of people with suites, and they're paying around that sort of $400 mark, depending on what city you're in. So, that seems, like that's in line with everything else I hear. Now, then the other thing that you just spoke about is where that revenue goes. And that's there's a lot of naivety when you hear young. I shouldn't say young. I'm trying to edit what I say before I say the wrong things. But there's a lot of naivety about a lot of people say, I'm going to leave working for Joe Schmo because he takes all my money, or he keeps half my money, or she keeps half my money. And it's like, really, you're smarter than that. You know what I mean? They don't get to keep very much of their half at all. And you were sort of running through that. And I'd put some notes down to sort of ask you about this. And I know you said, I'm famous for asking direct questions for people. And I hate listening to a podcast when I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, ask them this, ask them that, and they don't,
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
because they're
Yeah,
being
you're like
super
you're
polite.
like anticipating how the
Yeah,
conversation should play out.
exactly, because that's what people want to know, and so people want to know,
Mhm.
well, how much do they pay in rent? And so the other part of that is always trying to understand, well, where does the money go? And so I've put down some percentages here. Just to give young hairdressers an understanding of, well, where does all that money go? Because if they're working for you as an employee and they might be thinking, well, I only get 50% of what I do and she keeps the other 50%. Let's talk about where that 50% goes. So if you're a stylist, I think you mentioned the figure $4,000 a week. If you're doing $4,000 a week, $4,000 behind the chair, which is good if you're doing that. So
Mhm.
not everyone can do that sort of money. But if you're doing $4,000 a week behind the chair, and let's say 50% of that you're going to keep for yourself, so there's a couple
Yep.
of grand. Now,
Yep.
out of the other couple of grand, you've also got to pay rent. So if I'm going to average it as a percentage, I'm going to say 10% of 4,000. So there's 400. So that's in line with what you said, a double suite, etc. And then as a product percentage, as a ballpark, and it varies depending on if they do a lot of color work or not. And let's face it, today they do a lot of color work. I'm
Yeah.
going to say it's going to be 10% of that 4,000. So, ballpark,
Yep.
let's aim for 10%. Then, of course, you've got to pay tax. So, there's going to be 15% of that 4,000 is going to go towards tax. And then you've got all those operating
That might
costs. I
be
mean,
low. That might 15% might be low.
yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
That's
Like
that's the
overall.
low point. Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
But and then we've got operating costs. So you're in business on your own now. So you've got to pay your own insurance. You mentioned Square. You've got to pay for all your own tech. You've got your own bank fees. You've got your own credit card fees. You're paying for, generally, not with you, generally, you're paying your own training and education. You're paying for your own accountant. You're buying your own tools. It's all gone. The other 50%
Mhm.
on the numbers that I wrote down, it's all gone. Like, there's just,
I'm
and
gonna
that's the
say the
reality, isn't
take
it?
home. I'm gonna say the take home difference is, we pay 50% at Rootz, but
Yeah.
we have service fees, we have new client deductions. We talked about that in the last podcast.
We talked about that off air. So I'm going to pick up on that with you in a
Oh,
minute. So we'll come
okay.
back to there because
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. So here at Endz, I'm going to say that the average is taking true take home between 65 and 73%. High end. On the low end, you're making in the 60%. True take home.
Okay.
Now that depends how you run your business too.
Yeah.
That depends upon, claiming tips. That depends upon claiming cash. That depends upon, lots of other things. Credit card fees are another part of that, that's not really talked about. That, you might charge somebody $140. You're not getting all $140.
Yeah.
You're probably getting 137.
Yeah.
Okay. But over a period of time, those little dollars add up.
Yeah. Exactly. Big time. And a lot of people forget about all that stuff. So
yeah, it goes fast.
Yeah. But from what you've just very clearly said, in your businesses side by side, you are saying that the independents earn more money.
They do.
They do earn more money. Great. Okay. But they have a lot more responsibility as well. And they have to do their own marketing and all that sort of stuff. Okay.
It's deciding if that additional 10-ish% is worth it.
Yeah. Because there's all that other downtime that they are running their own business with, because they've now got to do their own books.
You're ordering your own color. You're handling your own back bar. You're handling your own beverage. You're handling your own hospitality.
Yeah.
Social media, your marketing, all those things. Now what we find here, at least for us, the girls that are here are more along the lines on, they have a wonderful clientele they've had for 25, 20 years, 15 years. And they're not really they do that because they have to be current. They're not actually doing that to derive business, which is different.
Yeah. Now, you just said also we're sort of switching between dollars and percentages, and you said 60% as a take home for a renter is not uncommon. Would you say that the renters are doing the same sort of revenue each week, the suite owners? as a
Mm-hmm.
stylist that's an employee? Is there a difference there? Because it's
That's a
60%,
great,
but
that's a
60% of
great
what?
question. Yeah, that's a great question. What I have found in my research has found, we raise prices at Rootz more readily than studio suite renters do here. Matter of
Yeah,
fact, I always encourage them. They need to be assessing their business every 6 months. Like any coach would,
yeah,
where they're a little bit less reluctant to do those things because they get comfortable here.
mm,
So because they're comfortable, they're not really thinking in that mind of like, hey, everyone's color went up like 3 times the past 2 years, maybe
yeah,
four
yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah,
You should be compensating for that. You're eating
mm,
into, and they're a little bit reluctant to
yeah,
want to do that.
yeah, because there's no one to blame it on.
Correct.
It's like, well, little
Right.
old me, I
Yeah.
just work
Yeah.
here. Don't blame
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
some of them say it's awkward. It's awkward because they know that's coming to me, and you're like, what? Your cost of operating business went up. It's
yeah,
a very basic conversation.
yeah,
I have to pass on this cost, whether it's minimal, whether it's 10%, regardless of what it is. At
yeah,
some point, that's going to catch up to you.
yeah. How do you separate your role in that, like you're overseeing both those businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, how do you separate your role from a marketing
Yeah.
perspective? Like you've got two very
Yeah.
different businesses. It's not your job to be
Yeah.
their marketeer, but it is your job to be
No.
the marketeer
Well, I need
in
to fill
Rootz,
the
but
I
not
need
so
to
much
fill the
Endz.
suites.
Yeah,
I need
yeah.
to fill the suites here at Endz, so I'm the marketer behind filling the suites.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
at Endz, I'm selling a business.
yeah,
At Rootz, I'm selling a service.
yeah. So at Rootz, you're filling a column. You're selling a column. You're filling a column.
Mm-hmm.
At Endz, you're
Filling
filling
a book.
a suite. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it's
so
two very different perspectives with that.
yeah. Now, from the salon owner's perspective, which business model is the most profitable for them?
Rootz.
Yes, I would have thought so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so
the commission
you
based always is.
yeah, because basically
Endz
you're just a
Endz is
landlord, aren't you?
successful, but it's fixed.
Yeah,
It's fixed.
exactly.
Okay. This
Yeah,
amount goes out, this amount comes in. It's a very, very basic
yeah,
P&L math equation.
yeah,
Where Rootz, there's much higher volume and it's a much larger algorithm,
yeah, exactly.
which
Okay.
ultimately ends up in being more profitable.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you said something, and I jumped in and said, no, we actually didn't talk about that in the recording. At least I don't think we did. I know we
Yeah.
definitely talked about it off air, and I was very interested in that, and I was going to ask you about that again today. So it's about this idea of a service fee for new
Yep.
clients and a finder's fee, a service charge, or whatever. So do you want to just tell us about that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Sure. I get asked about this a lot, actually. So we pay 50%.
Mhm.
That is our commission rate. The only reason we could be successful with a 50% commission rate is we have a service fee that the guest pays. Okay. So it's tacked onto each service
Mhm.
and there's no commission paid out on it. That amount of money goes to the house. Okay.
Right.
So example, $300 balayage
Yeah.
is a fixed rate of $15.
So that
Okay.
comes off
That
before the
$15
15% is paid, before the 50% is paid. Yeah.
Correct.
Got
Okay.
it. Okay.
The new client deduction
Yeah.
comes off after, like it comes off with the split of commission. So example, I did $150 partial highlight and the new client deduction is $10. I'm going to get paid on 140 of the 150.
Okay.
One time.
You get 50. Oh, so it's only one time. So a new client,
One time.
the house gets, what percentage was it?
$10.
$10.
$10 or
The
whatever
house
it is.
gets
Every
$10
service
for whatever
is rated
service
differently.
of every
Yep.
new client, but it's only a one-time thing. And then
Yep.
the stylist gets 50% of the remainder once that
that.
$10 has come off. Right.
And the reason behind that is we went through a period of years where we felt like our team was a little bit reckless in how many new guests that they got. And actually the level of service that they were providing, we felt like there was a level of unappreciation there because they'll just get 10 new clients next week and they'll just get 10 new clients the next week. And we average well over 100 new clients, 110 new clients a month. So we have a large pipeline of new guests. This is so that they want to take value and they want to make sure that they do everything so that, whether that guest returns to them or that guest returns to the salon, there's no longer that deduction for that guest. You follow me?
Got it. Yeah, got it. Okay. All right. From a marketing perspective, I mean, that is your background. That's your profession, isn't it? You've got a degree in marketing. Yeah. This actually could be one of those questions that you never finishes. I was going to say to you, what do you do from a marketing perspective? Because you're a marketeer that most other salons don't do. So it's going to be a list, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff that you do that other salons don't do.
Well, we do everything in-house. So we don't outsource anything. Like some people think I'm the quarterback and there's a company does this and a company does that and a company does this.
Yeah.
I am everything. So from building our own website, okay, I'm going to call myself an expert in WordPress, SEO, okay, managing of the Google business page. Everyone does the basics. They're on Facebook, they do Instagram, they do TikTok, things like that. We make all of our own in-house instructional videos on YouTube. I do all of those. And I wasn't inherently, that was trial and error, self-taught, all of it, including WordPress. Okay. Yeah. When I learned WordPress, Rootz didn't even have a website at the time. And I had a friend who was a web developer, and he was like, this is a new format that's coming out. Once I set it up for you, you'll be able to use it. Now, 15 years later, I use different platforms. I use different templates. I'm very, 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 very well versed in WordPress and do all of that. I run all the back end, all the SEO. That probably is one that costs salons a lot of money that we don't have to pay out on because I do that. Some pay monthly. There could be a very, very large fee that goes into running things like that, and I do that all in-house. We also don't do any paid advertising. All of our new guests are organically derived, and we're really fortunate to be in a position to where we organically derive all of our new guests. We've never paid a penny for a boosted post on any social platform.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Do you think that salons, I mean, because you're not a big business, often people would assume that, oh my God, if you've got an in-house marketing specialist, they must have 20 salons. I mean, I know businesses with 20 salons. They don't have an in-house marketing specialist or even a marketing department. It's sort of just one of the many hats that someone else is wearing. Obviously, I think you'd say yes. So talk to that. Do you think salons should invest in having a marketing, expert specialist?
I think more are now than when I first rolled into this position with Rootz. I was an anomaly. There wasn't 1 out of 500 had somebody like me. Okay. Now it's a much more readily available position within salons, but it's more, I'm not just a director of marketing. I run business operations. I do back end. I do budgeting. So it's more of a diverse role. It's not just a marketing role.
Yeah.
But my position in salons is much more common now, 15 years later, than it was 15 years ago. Right. 15 years ago, Salon Today was writing articles about the fact that they had me. Yeah. And that's what was happening. Yeah. Now, I don't want to call myself a dime a dozen, but it's a much more readily common position.
Even in a business your size.
Salon. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. What's the number one bit of advice you'd give to salon owners everywhere when it comes to marketing?
Ooh, I like that. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
And what I find 9 times out of 10 when talking with salons that have a marketing hiccup is they believe that they could be active today.
Yeah.
And not touch it for 3 months. And they're like, oh, I did that 3 months ago. And they're like, well, that was 3 months ago. You've been buried in the social feed now. Your website is outdated. Consistency is always the key. And it's making an effort to do that.
Yeah.
It's making a concerted effort to make that happen. because when you're behind the chair, when you're running a business, all the other things that go into operating a salon, if you aren't keeping the fresh blood coming in the front door, eventually that well is going to run dry.
Yeah.
And marketing now too, there's marketing, there's branding, there's guest experience. Guest experience is a very large piece of marketing now because that's your inward message for the guest. And that's what they're going to tell people about. And that's one thing that a lot of salons forget.
Yeah.
They want to pride themselves on customer service.
Yeah.
Customer service is what happens when we drop the ball, when we failed. Guest experience happens naturally. Yeah. That is how I feel the second I walk in. I was like, well, my level of customer service is great. That's not what you're shooting for. We are targeting guest experience. Customer service is what happens when we have to fix a problem.
Yeah. That's a good distinction. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And keeping that separated is very important because that all falls under this marketing umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. E-commerce. I said at the beginning we were going to talk about e-commerce, and I know that's a big part of your business, and I know it was something that was really important to you in COVID. And it was sort of, I think you told me this again before we were recording, that it was fortuitous that you had sort of got all that ready and then COVID struck and it was like, just turn this baby on and watch it sing. So tell us about that.
That was a great position to be in. I mean, timing couldn't have been any better. At the time, we had talked about going online for 2 years, and it took about 1.5 years to build that platform. So that was actually set up 2 years, even pre-COVID. Okay. And we would actively sell online. Okay. We would do a couple $100 a month here and there when, something wasn't in stock, we had them buy it online. So it gives us time to order the product, so on and so forth. Okay. So we didn't lose the sale. Okay. We were still able to make the conversion. Well, COVID hit and it was like, well, how are we going to generate business? We are going to blast the heck out of support us by buying retail, buying root kits, buying gift cards to be used in the future. Salons were scrambling to get that set up. Yeah. And I was just like, flip the switch. Yeah. Now we're really going to push towards it. During COVID, I think I helped over 30 salons get their foot going of how to sell, how to get that e-commerce, WooCommerce, whatever platform they were using set up for themselves so that they can start to sell something. Now, granted, the legwork that it takes to get that going is hundreds of hours. Rootz has over 486 products available online. That's every picture, every product description, quantities. There's quite a bit that rolls into all of that. That's not something that you're going to just flip on today. Yeah. Okay. Setting up shipping and things like that are all pieces to that puzzle.
And post-COVID, have you maintained a strong e-commerce presence?
It changed everything. Yeah. It changed everything for our own internal clientele. And we tend to, Davenas is one of the brands that we carry. And I find that we ship Davenas to a lot of rural states where Davenas isn't readily available.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So it's not
and it
just your existing clients.
Yeah.
Good. I know someone else who's recently set up SEO, and he was a e-commerce, and he was saying that he was amazed at how many people in sort of rural, he happens to be in Australia, in rural Australia, were buying products which, he was shipping out to them. So you said a couple of $100 a week pre-COVID. So what sort of money would you be happy with for it to do now?
We do anywhere from $700 to $1,000 a month in retail. And for us, I'm happy with that.
Good. Okay. And has it had an impact, a negative impact on your in-salon retail or not?
Oh, not at all. No. I mean, our guests, our radius of our business, our clients are anywhere from 1 mile to 45-ish miles away. So if you came in today and you forgot to buy your shampoo, you don't want to drive back to get it, we ship it for you. Yeah. And for a long time we shipped for free.
Yeah.
I just recently started charging for shipping.
Right.
And we split the difference.
Yeah.
So we don't even charge the full amount because we want to encourage our guests to buy.
Yeah.
We want to encourage them to buy online.
Yeah, exactly.
When they can.
Yeah. And so before we wrap up, I would need to ask you about AI. Yeah. And it is just like, it's just incredible. It's like this year, AI has just gone bang. Yeah. And it's just every time I get I've got a folder in my email and I call it AI resource, and I just keep putting all these emails in there under I must get to that and read it. It's just an avalanche of stuff happening. And it's incredible and it's exciting and it is changing in a lot of ways. It's going to change everything. What do you see? What impact do you see it having in your business and in your role as a marketer? What impact do you see it happening in the industry?
I think it's exciting. I'm on the fence with how much. Okay, like I'll give you an example. I think it's amazing for auto replies to text messaging. Yeah. Within our salon software.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that could be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say I'm excited to see where it goes, but also while being apprehensive of not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Because with every big tech jump, there could likely be, there's, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back while you work out the kinks, type thing.
Yeah.
From a marketing perspective, the easier we could make it for our guests to do anything, the more accessible we could be, the easier we make absolutely to make a reservation, to solve a problem, to buy a product, the more you're going to win.
Yeah.
Because you're in their face, you're active, you're accessible, you're making it easy.
Yeah,
for them.
Exactly. And that's got to be a win. Well, talk about a game changer, though, isn't it? 100%. The industry I started in and the industry that I work in now are just being completely reinvented, like every industry, and some of them will be decimated, like always happens when there's any major leap forward in tech. Okay, right. We need to wrap up. Jen, where can people, if they haven't listened to the last episode, where can they connect with you on Instagram or other social media channels?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Instagram is probably the best. It is Jen_LeBlanc _Ohio. And LeBlanc is spelled LEBLANC. Or you could follow us at Salon Rootz, and Rootz is with the Z. I'd love to hear from you.
Great. Okay. Well, I will put those links on our website, growmysalonbusiness.com, and in the show notes for today's podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast with Jen LeBlanc and have enjoyed it as much as I have and got as much from it as what I know you would have done and what I certainly have, do me a favor, take a screenshot on your phone and share it to Instagram stories. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to wrap up, Jen, thank you so much once again.
Thank you for having me.
So
it is a pleasure every time.
Thank you with your time and stuff, and we'll get you. But I'm sure there's lots of things we haven't spoken about that we can regroup with. So fantastic! Thank you very much for being with us, and I'll look forward to the next time we talk.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you'd like to connect with us, you'll find us at growmysalonbusiness.com or on Facebook and Instagram at growmysalonbusiness. And if you enjoyed tuning into our podcast, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Anthony Whitaker, wishing you continued success.